All right, so here we are with a webinar today hosted by me, Bruce Firestone, and my friend and colleague, Aaron Markel. Aaron, say hi.
Hello, hello.
And I'm going to share my screen with everybody, and you'll be able to see the slides, I hope. Can you see the slides okay, Aaron?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, so Aaron told me, and this was his idea. He's the guy you have to blame for this. He told me that there is a missing link, that people like me and others who do some coaching and teaching in real estate, we focus on highest and best use and what the Planning Act is like and what the zoning allows, what the ordinances or bylaws say. We look at spreadsheets and return on investment and cap rates and just endless stuff. But almost nobody, Aaron pointed out to me, talks about how to build, how to renovate on time and on budget. And it's become a particularly acute subject, not just to me, but also to many others, probably millions of others, of real estate investors and developers, because the pandemic caused a tremendous change in the supply chain, pricing all over the map, mostly higher, and then delays. And so Aaron, who is a master builder, and you'll hear more from him about himself and his experience, but he's been at this for, I think, 27 years. He looks younger, but he's been at it for a while now. And he's been able to deliver projects on time and on budget. And he agreed today to share those, some of those ideas and how he does it, some of his secret sauce, I guess I call it, with us. And I think that's very, very helpful and very useful to all of us, including me. We call this webinar Buildup, and we are going to do a course in April, May, and June, so a 3-month course called Buildup, How to Grow an Unbeatable and Sustainable Real Estate Portfolio. Then you can see underneath, it's about ideas and business models, how to purchase the right property, how to finance it, how to lease it. But mostly it's going to be focused on how you schedule a project so that you bring it in on time, and how you budget and how you meet that budget so you can renovate or construct new stuff, under budget or on budget. And that's really important. So Aaron's project, Aaron, you can see my cursor moving around here.
Yep.
Aaron's company, he's the founder of AIM Project Management. I think quite a few of you now know Aaron. And of course, many of you know me, Bruce Firestone. So this seminar or webinar is really in 3 parts. The first part is going to be Master Builder Aaron Markel talking about, his secret sauce. But the other thing I put on here in part 1, you can see it on screen, is that something that Aaron has really emphasized, especially over the last couple of years, is becoming a green builder. And, there's a lot of, excuse my language, but there's a lot of BS when it comes to green building. And I don't really like a lot of the teaching that's going on out there. But Aaron's stuff, he's very practical. And when he talks about green, it has to obviously be good for the environment, but also good for your budget. And I think that's a really important part of being green, is making sure it's also economically viable. In part 2, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Buildup course that we're going to do in April, May, and June. I think it's quite an affordable course, so I hope you'll stick with me for part 2. And then part 3, I'm going to do 2 projects if we have time today. I'm trying to get you guys out of here by 1 o'clock Eastern time, 10 o'clock Pacific time. And I'd like to finish on time. So I'll see if I can fit in 2 projects that I worked on. One was an awesome success, under budget, and actually early in terms of its delivery, and one a horrible failure. I wish I didn't have any failures, but unfortunately that isn't true. And I'll share that with you. And then there's a bonus right at the end, if you stick around, that I'm going to provide everybody today. And listen, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box. And I guess you all know where the chat box is. While Aaron is talking, he's going to be up in about 30 seconds. I'll keep monitoring the chat box, and Aaron and I both like it when you interrupt us with questions. So if you have something you don't really understand that I'm saying or Aaron's saying, just put it in the chat box, and I'll put up my hand. I'll stop Aaron and say, you got a question. All right, so let's see where we go now. I guess it's over to you, Aaron.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. I want to take a few minutes just to kind of explain who I am, my background. Everyone in the world pretty much knows Bruce. Not as many people know who I am. My company, as Bruce mentioned, my founding company is AIM Project Management. I have almost 28 years of experience. I started in the commercial world, so my thoughts on how to build are a little bit different than most. I've done residential, I've done a fair bit of industrial and some design as well. I have probably more certificates than I can put on one page. Just some of the highlights: I can install helical piles. I just opened a spray foam company, so I'm certified for spray foam, indoor air quality. I can design your ductwork. I can do layouts. I can design solar packages. It's quite a few disciplines. And I do own and operate, along with some partners, about 16 companies. And I have them branched into three main components. The first one being construction, which is near and dear to my heart. The second is accommodations, and we'll look at a couple of those companies today. And the last one is consumption, my favorite being that I own a brewery and I built a brewery. So some of the different things that I've done along the years: I've built and remodeled 4 embassies. I've built and remodeled at least 4 buildings downtown Ottawa. Probably the thing I'm proudest of, I rebuilt the old headquarters of Heritage Canada, the Billy Bishop House. It's the picture in the bottom right-hand corner. It's probably the neatest thing I've ever done. I have built 2 microbreweries. Bruce and I met through multifamily design and construction. I've done homes, cottages, custom builds, and actually I've done a fair number of indoor pools, which is kind of its own weird subcategory of construction. So free beer, that's interesting. Yeah, it's a hard thing to give away. I make a lot of friends with the brewery, I can tell you that much. We'll jump to the next slide, please, Bruce. I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about what I'm doing today as a company. Myself and a partner, Brad, who's on this call, we have 4 multi-family homes under construction, one that's about a month or 2 away, and then 2 more that are in very early stages of starting. We will be building phase 2 of Hammond Hill. We will look at that in the next slide. One of the more neat things we have, we started a small living village, so it's going to be the first of its kind off-grid tiny home village in Canada. And currently we're sitting at 100 lots with about 20% sold out. So this one we're pretty proud of, and we'll do a couple of slides on that just to give you a feel for what that is. We're also, where I'm sitting today, my office, my partner Brad and I, we bought a building, we converted it into an office space. I'm building a yoga studio immediately to my right, and then we built a Medi Spa in the basement. So we've kind of taken something that was a small residence and turned it into a very interesting commercial property. And the last one, we were approached by the municipality about 6 months ago to restore an old train station for them. The really neat thing about this project is they actually gave us the building for $1, and they're providing us $450,000 of money to renovate it. So this is going to be one of my real cool heritage projects that I've done. I try and only do things now that excite me, and this one's pretty exciting. So we'll jump around there, Bruce, to the next slide. Just quickly, a few people have seen this slide. So Hammond Hill Eco Resort is the first of its kind that we can find in the world. It represents 62 acres of nature paths. We have a variety of accommodations. We have Mongolian yurts, jupes, pioneer homes. We will have 20 or 30 tiny homes by the end of this summer. We do have campsites. We made a lake, and we're in the process of making a second lake. Because of the brewery, we're the first campsite that we can find that has a licensed beer garden, kind of like an adult play area. Volleyball, soccer, Beersby, tons of games. We have 8 kilometers of nature trails currently, which will move to about 12. And we're the first campground to open in the province in the last 12 years. So I know a bit about building campsites, and I would say that I probably know more than most because they don't get built very often. So I'm also, as a small aside, the wedding picture there. I'm a licensed wedding officiant. So that was my 3rd wedding of last summer, and I have, I think, 5 or 6 booked for this year. So kind of a nice little throw in with everything else we do.
Aaron, I have a question for you.
Yep.
What's a Beersby?
Beersby is an interesting game. It's kind of set up with 2 pegs on either end, and you actually put a beer can on it, and you throw a frisbee at the beer can. If you knock it off, the other person has to have a drink. So it's kind of a drinking game, actually, that seems fairly popular.
Well, you know, I could really throw a frisbee. I'll challenge you to a Beersby game this summer.
That we can do for sure.
Just before we get off this slide, I'd like to comment on it. Aaron and his business partner, Brad Cartier. You can see Brad up on the top of this slide, top right-hand side. There's Aaron on the left and Brad on the right. They put up, I think, 25 sites available for sale or for lease. Really, it's a land lease, but also tiny homes go on that for sale, or for, sorry, 2 tiny homes or 1 tiny home on each site. So you could have 25 sites and maybe 50 tiny homes on those. And they put those up for land lease and for sale. And I don't think it took more than a couple of weeks to sell out the first 25.
No,
Yeah.
the response has been amazing.
It's fantastic. And it was such a great pitch that they made, guys, that I bought site 9 and 2 small living company tiny homes as well.
So we'll talk a little bit about small living companies. So this business is an interesting business. Brad and I opened this business about 3 years ago. We have a 2,000 square foot indoor showroom. We have a part-time designer that works there. We have a full-time head of sales and a full-time head of construction. We currently have 3 model homes that are completely built and finished for inspiration purposes. And we are running down the avenue of this investor piece that Bruce just referred to. I do have the presentation. If anyone wants to see more about that, it's a fairly long presentation, but we record everything we do. So we do have that presentation ready if anyone would like to learn more about that. But this model will be very exciting for us. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be the first tiny home development in Canada. And I love that kind of feel to it. There's a few more information on the next slide, but that's an example of an 80 square foot tiny home that we built, and we rent that thing out for like $220 a night, that has no power, no water, and it's one of our most popular offerings. So it's really interesting. Aaron, Soren said he'd like to look at the presentation. Soren, I'm going to ask Aaron to put his contact information in the chat box. And just after this is over, reach back to Aaron and he'd be happy to make that available. Yep, I'll get up there.
Do you want to type in your email address, please? And Kyle, you wanted to say something?
Hey, Aaron. Hey, Bruce. Aaron, thanks so much for coming and sharing your expertise with us. I'm a little curious as to what your thoughts are. I know this is looking at more of a short-time rental, Airbnb sort of approach. As you know, that American dream of owning basically a house is becoming more and more unrealistic for most people. Do you think there's sort of a model that people are switching to as a more realistic type of living environment for them that you'd recommend leaning towards building? I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead in your presentation and you're touching on this later, but I mean, I see these tiny homes and they're a little bit farther out. So now with being able to work from home or work on a laptop, this may even be leaning towards something that people could use as a rental as well. But you know, what is your opinion on that?
So it's a really good question. It will be touched on later in this presentation and in the presentation that we'll send out. We have built different styles of tiny homes in different sizes. So the 2 things I would touch on is, yes, the future is tiny. It really is. We're running out of land. These things can be built for like a third of the cost of conventional houses. And really the second like really important point here is when we look at these, we call them tiny houses, but they're not tiny houses, they're tiny spaces. So we have people that have bought them and are looking to use a massage clinic or a home-based office, to your earlier point, or maybe even somewhere when you have family come over that they can stay outside of your house. They're self-contained, they have washrooms, they have showers, if that's what you would like. So they really are, the limitation on this is imagination and what you're willing to move into. Like if you're moving in from a 4,000 square foot home into a 200 square foot home, it's going to be a challenge. But the future is tiny. I really, really believe that this modeling we're on track and on point. We have in the showroom, we have a tiny unit, a medium unit, and a large unit, and we've tried to orient them in different ways so you can see different skills and different things that could happen with those tiny homes. So you're 100%.
So I'm going to comment too, Kyle. You probably know the motto of the tiny house movement: less house, more life. And for example, I own a building and I do rent some parking spaces to tiny home owners. I don't make any of those. That's small living company that does that. But these folks are not poor, Kyle. For example, I have a young couple, George and Brett, who have a very nice tiny home. It's actually quite big, parked on one of my sites. The size of that tiny home, Karina, is it's 55 feet long. So when George and Brett asked me if they could park their tiny home on one of my sites, I said, sure. And then they pull up with this 55-foot long, humongous tiny home, in quote marks. And they only pay like $500 a month plus HST for their parking space, and they live in it. They don't have a mortgage on it, Kyle. The place is so big, they have a workshop in the back where they can run their own personal businesses. And George works as a project manager, and his wife, Brett, works in a jewelry store. They have about $140,000 between the two of them family income, and they have more money than I do. And the reason for that is their cost of living is like zero. I mean, it's $500 a month, So the motto is less house, more life. And it's not just young people, Kyle, that are doing that. People my age are just saying to heck with them. The 4,000 square foot home in suburbia. I'll take a tiny home in Ontario or British Columbia, and another one I'll park in Florida or Arizona.
Mm-hmm. And
So
the other thing I'll mention real quick, and we'll get to it in the slide. When you build these on trailers, which we are doing, we've found a company that's building us custom-made trailer chassis. When they go on wheels, building code does not apply. So I saw a few questions about size, orientation. You have a lot of flexibility. We build these with a designer so that we're close to building code, but we have a lot of flexibility in terms of what they look like and what they're for, so long as they're built on a trailer chassis. So I want to talk quickly about our small living village. So what you're looking at here is a map of Hammond Hill. That's our eco resort. We do have, and I should have mentioned, the brewery is about a mile down the road. We also have an 18-hole golf course that's immediately adjacent. And what you're seeing in between the yellow lines is phase 1 and phase 2 of our village concept. As Bruce mentioned earlier, phase 1 is 16 lots. They're gone, or sites, as Bruce wants to call them. And we're now into phase 2 I just got an email as we're talking. It looks like another lot is gone. I don't know if it's 27 or 28. I can't really read it on my phone. I need glasses. So it's moving along very well. We will be completely off-grid tiny homes. We'll be providing water and power. I did mention that we use incinerating toilets. We've experimented with a couple of different varieties. We have the separate toilet, which is a compostable toilet. We bought quite a few of them, and to be honest, they didn't meet our standards. In the office I'm sitting in today, bought an incinerating toilet. They're made by Cinderella. They're very expensive. They're about $6,000, $7,000 installed. And I've used it during construction. So every day I have 4 or 5 guys using it, and it's fantastic. It's changed what we can do. When you build off grid, your biggest challenge is black water. It's getting rid of waste, human waste. So really excited about that. Everything we do up there is built with an ecological footprint. Last year, I invested in a sawmill. We make a lot of our own bridges. We make all of our own signs. Every time we cut down a tree, we replant the tree, and that tree becomes firewood I have a wood-fired pizza oven. So the wood goes to the wood-fired pizza oven, or it goes to the site. Nothing gets wasted, and it's really part of our footprint. So I think there was a question.
I actually answered it for you, but I want to say to Jason and to everyone, it took me a long time to figure out what a Cinderella toilet was. I mean, I know it's an incinerating toilet, and I thought Cinderella meant, it's suitable for a princess. But it's not. It's Cinderella, right? So it's like
Yes.
An incinerator is cinders. I mean, obviously, I'm sure everybody got that, but it took me like weeks to figure out what the name was all about.
And they're made either propane or natural gas or electric. So the one I have here, we tried out the electric model, but they work great. No odor, no smell. It runs under positive pressure, so you don't even have to have an exhaust fan running. They're great. The other thing, just real quick, I'll go back one slide, Bruce. The other thing that's interesting about this model that we're really excited about is it's scalable. So people that have land that they don't know what to do with it, we're currently looking at a West End location just outside of Calabogie. My favorite one to mention is we've secured 20 acres just outside of Cancun that we'll be building on in probably 6 months. And we're looking at some property with Bruce out in Lasqueti Island and Vancouver Island as well. So the model itself, the tiny home movement, building a village, making it sustainable, Like, I believe this, and this is my passion. This is where the future of these kind of parks and campgrounds is going. So we're very excited about what's happening here. Now we can jump forward. So really, as it pertains to the kind of things that I think I can bring to the table, that the things that make me unique in terms of what I do and how I teach, Bruce has been helping me launch my own coaching platform as well, which this is part of. The big one here, the entry level is, listen, let's talk about your team. Who's on it? Why are they on it? Are they bringing value? The types of people that I try and surround myself with, and I think I'm a pretty good judge of this, looking at all the different roles, explaining them, lining up your team for success. Bruce's catchphrase for me has always been on time and on budget. I love it. And what I would counter is, we can teach you how to do that, but probably more importantly is to teach you what to do when you start to fall out of that category. And looking at the reasons that most of these things do, and they almost always do. Looking at the different cost structures, I could probably talk about this one for hours. My favorite one is time and material, and we'll touch on that through the course, because I think I've looked and found a different way to build that benefits you, the owner, and me, the contractor. And I think it's an amazing model that I'm going to be pushing downstream on everyone that I work with. On the construction stuff, what I'd really like to do, and what we will be doing, is bringing in what I call subject matter experts. So we'll be bringing in an electrician. Great example. He's going to come in and talk about electrical layouts, what to look for when you're planning out panels, things like that. We'll do the same thing. I'm a big heat pump guy, for anyone who knows me. I'm going to bring in one of our suppliers from Dakin, and they're going to talk about what a heat pump is, why you should use it, how you size them. And we're going to do that all throughout the construction model. We have some realtors that are going to come on. Bruce, I think you brought someone in from BDC to explain how they do mortgages. I'm going to be looking at some building inspectors and things to just kind of bring in the outside opinion. So it's not just Bruce and I talking, it's real people that do this day in and day out as their main business. Number 3 is kind of like the ugly cousin that no one wants to talk about. It might be the single most important thing to anyone that's deciding to build in any variety. I have a person on my team. She works for me full time. She manages my health and safety across the board. We're all certified. It's not that exciting a thing to talk about, but having an amazing health and safety program will one day save you a lot of money and potentially a lot of hassles. So as Bruce mentioned, I have gone green. I've changed my logo to a leaf in the top. I've redone my model to rethink construction. I've moved down the avenue of as many eco options as possible. And one of the things we're really trying to do when we think about eco, like a lot of people are thinking about LEED certification and green roofs, and I'm not there. What I'm looking for are small incremental improvements that you can make with your home and your construction methods that make a big deal. And I believe my business partner, Brad's on the call. I'll have him share a slide from CMHC. We went through an eco modeling on one of the buildings we're building currently. And we were able to, with a program from CMHC, we were able to obtain a rate of, I think, 4.7% amortized over 45 years. And it took literally about 5 simple changes to the initial design of the building to get that. So if Brad, you're there, if you don't mind sharing that, and if he doesn't, I'll share it later. But it's pretty exciting when you can do the right thing for the building, the right thing for the planet, improve your tenants' experience because the house is warmer, quieter, and you're getting great rates and money back. I don't see that. There's no downside. That's a win across the board. You can jump to the next slide there, Bruce.
I have to unmute myself. I apologize. Just before we move to the next slide, Chiranjeev, you had a question?
Yes, Bruce, thank you for letting me ask the question. So hello, Aaron, I'm Chiranjeev, and I am a student with Bruce for a long time. So quick question, short question. If I have to build a multifamily, do you know, this is again, very, very specific, how far this building should be from a creek or the canal, or creek or canal, or if there is a river, how far, if there is a distance, or does it matter with the height of the building?
that you'd have to actually go back to the municipality. Water is a big deal. Depending on where you are, Ontario, Quebec, where you're near things, your municipality rules on water setbacks are very, very specific. And it would vary extremely far from one site to the other, but the municipality will have that information because it's a big one. People don't mess around with water.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Kyle, you had a question as well? Kyle?
Sorry, is my hand still up? I'll take
Yes.
that down,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry about that. Okay. I'm going to get out of this for a moment, and I'm just going to put in here what Brad put in. Brad Cartier added this to the slide deck. So do you want to just talk to this, Brad, if you could unmute yourself?
Yeah, happy to. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so it's the CML or the CMHC MLI Select program, and there's 3 different buckets. One for energy efficiency, which we hit. We got all our points through that, so that First National could give us the terms that CMHC was gonna provide based on the energy efficiency, and it's just a scoring system. So you have to go through a consultant. There are some fees associated with that to do the audit, but the consultants can let you know ahead of time before you spend the money if you're close or not. We were hoping to get 25 points on our audit to get a 40-year AM and a slightly higher LTV. We ended up getting 40 points. So it was a huge win, and it's something we'll do with all of our builds now. I mean, why not have that optionality to stretch out your AM and get a lower rate?
Yeah, and the easy part, the easy win were these were things we were doing anyway, and then we went through the program and realized how successful they were. They're very easy upgrades. They did not cost a lot. In some cases, they were cost neutral or actually saved us money by making some of these changes.
Aaron, Karina is asking, is your green model applicable to multifamily? Maybe you already answered that.
Yes. So the slide that Brad just presented is a multifamily build. It's a 6-plex. It actually is applicable in this particular model.
And we had one other question, and that was, can you put one of your small living company tiny homes in the backyard of your principal residence, for example, and put it on Airbnb?
The Airbnb model is a bit challenging, but these can be put. So coach homes are now mandated through the province. So these can be put in your backyard. We have a model and a system that we would be moving down towards, but we probably, as a company, we won't get to the backyard model for about 4 to 5 months. But we see it as a very interesting model. We did a presentation with about 15, 16 realtors to kind of explain to the realtor crowd what this looks like to them, because we would see them as our primary sales team out in the field as people are buying, refinancing, doing stuff like that. So there are very interesting models that are available for the backyard.
We're just going to have one more question because, I mean, I listen, I'd like to keep Aaron here for the next 3 hours, but then people get mad at me because I promised to get you out of here in the 60 minutes. Here's one last question for you, Aaron, before we go to the last slide of yours. Would you mind sharing a few specific energy upgrades you added to get the 40 points under the energy efficiency program?
Yeah, so the couple of big ones, we added an additional layer of foam on the outside of the building. We added a 2-inch layer of foam that gave us an additional R10, in addition to the insulation inside. And a big one, and this one's a little bit counterintuitive, but we went away from gas-fired appliances. We went to an electric hot water tank and an electric heat pump. The energy audit, the way they look at it is not just how efficient you're making the building, but when they look at gas in particular, they're looking at what your byproduct of running gas, which you're adding to carbon monoxide and you're adding to poison for the environment. So if on first glance, it doesn't make any sense to do that, but by going to an electric hot water tank and an electric heat pump system, that's really the main thing that bumped us over the listing. And when we talk about electric, everyone thinks, well, electricity is so expensive. But when you look at actual electrical efficiency, 1 amp in gives you 1 amp of yield. It's the only thing that exists like that. Your gas furnace at your house today is probably yielding like 90% efficiency. electrical power is 100% efficient. So it did make a big difference. It also, a really interesting byproduct of that is we have no ductwork, very minimal ductwork in all of our units, which means no bulkheads, higher ceilings. So it was a win across the board. I will talk about square footage pricing a bit. It's kind of my least favorite question. As a builder, the very first thing most people ask is they'll start with, we have a building in Pembroke or wherever, what would it cost to build per square foot? What I really would like to do, and through this course, what I'm hoping to do is look at all the different ways that impact that square footage cost and show you all the incremental differences you can make to bring that number down. I'd like to look at it from that side rather than, well, how much? How much is an ambiguous question. And I think a big part of this course, that the focus on that is to get that down from 400 to 300 and into the low 2 or mid 200s. That's a real big part of this. And really for me, and when I think about Buildup, it's providing that toolbox so that there's understanding of delays and extras and problems and everything else that we discussed earlier, so that you're armed to go out to start these builds or finish builds or get through builds and understand when the subcontractors call you or your GC calls you, understanding what he's actually talking about. My business as a contractor we're in a very adversarial business. As you, the landowner, and me, the contractor, the business is adversarial. I'm always trying to push things on you, and you're always trying to pull things on me. I have a lot of thoughts on how we can kind of change that model and change the way that looks, because that model is broken. It doesn't make any sense the way it's set up right now. And that's a big part of what I would like to review as we go through.
We have one question from Colette. What was the extra cost of adding the extra foam layer?
The extra cost on the sixplex, so it's about a 6,000 square foot building. The extra cost is probably $20,000 or $25,000.
So it's not insignificant, but that particular project that you just mentioned, I know that you delivered it on time, and I think Brad told me that it was something like $800,000 under budget.
Yeah, we're finalizing numbers, but yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, the foam, it's negligible. It's going to provide a better environment, use less energy. It's something as a landlord we can sell. That concept is a sellable concept, and that's really important, because if you're just looking at front end cost, you're not thinking about back end opportunity. And the salesmanship opportunity that we're giving to the people leasing these units is very exciting. And this, Bruce asked me to throw this in. I've been doing this a long time. I have a lot of amazing discounts. This is off of a multifamily home, and I have to write down, this represents 2 double doors, 4 exterior doors, 14 patio doors, 26 windows, all in black. And you'll see one of the ways that we work things out is coming up with really interesting ways that purchase of materials and the transfer of some of those costs can happen. Because the traditional model as a builder is I would take the actual list price, so that $80,000, and I would mark that up, and I can show you ways to bring those costs down where the builder still wins and you win. And that's a big part of my coaching business and a big part of my actual business and how I run it.
Wow, what a fantastic presentation. So listen, I hope everybody is excited about listening to Aaron as I am. And I'm sure everybody, we could keep him here, like I said, for the next 2.5 hours, and we'd only be partway done. And that's kind of why we're doing the course. And I'm going to talk just for a few minutes about that. And again, Aaron, that was fantastic. I wish we had more time and we could hear from you. So anyway, we are going to do a course starting in April. It'll run from April until June. And it's really focused mostly on the missing link, as Aaron has said to me many times. How do we bring projects in on time and on budget? And I'm going to add a little bit to that, at least, or I hope I will, talk about some great business models, how to, get great appraisals and all the rest of the stuff, how to get top-notch ROI and cap rates and all that. I mean, I can't resist that. But this course is going to be focused primarily on you know, how do we get a project or a renovation, a new construction renovation done on time and on budget? And as you were talking, Aaron, I think we should ask Canadian Financial to come along and be one of the guests. I mean, we're going to have trades and sub-trades, but we're also going to have some financial people. Aaron mentioned BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada, the Bank of Entrepreneurs. But I think, Aaron, we should also ask Canadian Financial, because they're doing 90% loan to value on these small living company tiny homes. That's pretty good, 90%. Yeah. And the interest rate is not cheap. It's 8 or 9%, but still, you know, if you put it on the market at $200 a night, you can afford 8 or 9%. So anyway, that's the course is going to start April 13th. It's going to be every Thursday from noon until it's an hour and a half, so 90 minutes. So you will have a little bit longer. It'll be on Zoom. It'll start on April 13th and to run every Thursday. April, May, and June, except that every fourth Thursday, it's kind of like study week. In other words, it gives Aaron and me a bit of a break. Really, it gives me a bit of a break, Aaron. And so we'll do 3 lectures, 3 lectures, 3 lectures, 3 lectures like that until we're finished. We'll finish on June 22nd. And I'd like everybody to make whatever efforts they can to actually attend the classes live. A lot of people say, you know, oh, no worries, I can listen to the recording, but listening to a recording is not the same as being there live, where you get to ask questions to Aaron or me, or in fact, peer-to-peer coaching is important, where you can ask questions either on the chat box or, you know, verbalize to other people in the course. And that's very important. There'll be lots of bonuses. As you guys know, I think most of you know me, I've got hundreds of hours of video trainings, probably several thousand spreadsheets. So there'll be lots of bonus material. So extra video trainings, extra spreadsheets, and lots of readings to do. So I'd like you guys to do that and keep up, because that's how you get the most out of the course. And your investment in the course, I think it's reasonably priced. I did not price it at $1 million, Aaron. We priced it at $875 a month plus HST for 3 months. So if you want to participate in the course, it's $875 per month, and that's Canadian dollars, not pesos and not American dollars, and Canadian dollars for 3 months plus HST. But here's the neat thing. Aaron and I have done some of this stuff before, and I've done it as well. And you can add a +1 for free. So that +1 might be your spouse. It might be an advisor. It might be a realtor. I mean, I don't know. Anybody that you think might be a partner, an investor, anybody you think that would benefit, you can add him or her to the course for free. And some of the younger people I know, they're pretty smart. What they do is they get a rich investor who pays for the course, and then the student gets to, the young person gets to do the course for free. But anyway, it's $875 a month for 3 months. There you go. I'm going to put in the chat box in a minute. This is a form. I use a very, very simple approach for these things. In other words, this is a form you can download if you want to participate in the course. You just fill it in and you can send it back. We have somebody who is not muted. Can you check who it is? Can you mute yourself, because there's some background noise here? So I apologize to everybody. You know, if you have a baby crying or whatever, you're moving furniture, that's kind of hard for everybody to hear. I'm just going to get out of this for a second so I can put this in the chat box. So you'll have it in if you want it. So there you go. That's it that's the pitch for the course. And if you'd like to join us, it'll be a fantastic course, I am sure. All right, I'll put this in the chat box. If you have any questions about the course, you guys know how to get in touch with me. It's bruce@brucemfirestone.com. And I did put, Aaron, your contact information in the chat box earlier, so everybody can reach out to you or to me. Now, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I can whip through these things incredibly quickly. I wanted to tell you first about a success story, and then if I have time, I'll tell you about a failure. Because I think you learned something from your successes, but maybe you actually learned more from your failures, although that has yet to be tested. So here's one of my success stories, goes back quite a long time now. What does Toronto have that Ottawa doesn't have? That's a question I asked myself back in the late 1980s, early 1990s? And the answer to that was they had a zoo, but I'm not too interested in zoos. And they had the Princess of Wales Theatre, and I'm not too interested in that either. And they had a hockey team called the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I thought, oh my goodness, maybe Ottawa's big enough now to have an NHL team. And so myself and my group went out and bid on a National Hockey League expansion franchise, which we did get, and we founded an NHL team in Ottawa called the Ottawa Senators. It was a very simple plan. It wasn't complicated at all to bring back the Ottawa Senators. They did play in the National Hockey League, by the way, up until I think the mid 1930s when the Great Depression sort of wiped them out. But we had a simple plan, and you'll see it here on the screen. And the idea was to buy 600 acres of land, and of which we needed probably 70, 80 acres for the actual building and parking lot, which you can sort of see here where my cursor is moving around. To build a National Hockey League caliber arena, 20,000 seats. So the idea was to buy the land fairly cheap, which we did. It was about $12,500 an acre for 600 acres, so about $7.2 million. But that's very inexpensive land, as it turns out. You put an NHL caliber arena and a National Hockey League expansion franchise in the middle of it, and presumably the rest of the land goes up in value, and that's helps you finance these projects. So that's kind of like bootstrapping at a level of 500 million to $1 billion project. So we did that, and here is the. This is the original design of the Palladium. It was called the Palladium. It's now called Canadian Tire Center. And it was a beautiful design. It had a fabulous hotel stuck on one end of it. And there's the hockey rink here. Like I said, with 20,000 or 22,000 seats in it. But this was too expensive to build. So what we actually built was something more like a Coliseum. And there's no hotel there. All right. And you can sort of see this is the inside of the building here on the top right here. We had a bunch of private suites, I think 144, which is quite a lot, in 3 rings, one here, and one here. And from the construction point of view, this was a huge success. PCL, which is one of the biggest contractors in Canada, gave us a guaranteed maximum price, sometimes called a gross maximum price, but I prefer the term guaranteed maximum price of $240 million. PCL is a large, established, Alberta-based construction company, very credible. And once they give you a GMP guarantee, whether it's $240 million or $240,000, it's very similar. Once you get a guarantee from a credible source, you can actually use that to establish a benchmark for financing. You can actually, finance against that guarantee, which we did. The Palladium construction, the Canadian Tire Center, was planned to be 32 months, and it was done in about 26 months. Maybe it was 27 or 28, but it was done significantly early. And we aimed for a $240 million budget, and they PCL brought it in at 236. So that is pretty amazing. And how did we do that? Well, we did that PCL did that really, by bringing in 4 tower cranes, not one, and dividing the project into 4 quadrants. And each tower crane had its own team, and it was like a competition. We had like 4 teams out there competing with each other to build this thing out. So that was one thing, the competition and the dividing it up into a simpler, quadrant. The other thing was very tight control over critical path scheduling. Critical path scheduling is something we're going to spend quite a bit of time on in the course. And there's a video training, you can see it here, and I'll put it in the chat box in a minute as well. And it means what tasks are critical. In other words, if that task is late, the whole project is late. That's critical path methodology. It was developed in World War II for the Manhattan Project. They had something like 300,000 people working on that project to develop the atomic bomb, and 3,000 contractors. So it's a very useful thing to control projects, and whether it's small or large, it's very important. The other is sort of, I don't want to call it innovation, but I suppose it is in a way, was we put the owner, the general contractor, the development manager, the project manager, the architect, and engineers on one side of the table. all of those people, all of those suppliers basically were on fixed price contracts. Because if you put them on a percentage of the project cost, they have an incentive to have the project go up in value, right? Change orders and all the other stuff, and we didn't want that. So they were fixed price contracts. On the other side of the table was competitive bidding for the trades and the subtrades. It was fantastically successful. I'm not going to go through this calculation. I did it this morning for you guys. I wanted to show you though how important it is to finish early, or at least on time. In the case of the Sens, by finishing 4, 5, 6 months early, they got into a bigger building. Basically, almost 2/3 of the season, they got in the bigger building. So they went from a 10,000 seat arena to a 20,000 seat arena. And so even though we saved $4 million on construction, our revenues went up by 39, almost $40 million. You can see the number on the screen there, $39.6 million. That's approximate. So, and believe me, whether you're renovating a basement, putting a few micro suites in your basement or a couple of bedroom apartment down there, if you can finish on time or a little bit early, it really makes a huge difference to your internal rate of return. Time is money. I mean, we all know that, but this shows you just how important that was for the hockey team. And that's true for smaller projects. And I just had to put this in because it's a point of pride. So I was feeling pretty good about myself because the Sky Dome, which was under construction around the same time as the Canadian Tire Center, the Sky Dome in Toronto, which is now called the Rogers Center, turned out to cost, look at this slide here. The original estimate was $150 million for the Sky Dome. The actual cost was $650 million. They blew their budget by $500 million, and the province of Ontario had to pick that up. So the taxpayers in Ontario ended up footing the bill for a $500 million cost overrun. And this is something that really rocks me. They sold the Sky Dome to Rogers Communications for $25 million. So it cost $650 million to build. And the province of Ontario, who took over the project, sold it for $25 million. I did a calculation in a book I wrote called Don't Back Down, which you'll see in a second, that the land underneath this building is worth about $900 million. So everybody on this call, if I came to you tomorrow and said, listen, we could buy the Sky Dome, now called Rogers Center, for $25 million, tear that sucker down and build whatever we want to build on this land, and the land is worth $900 million. Think about that. We'd make almost $1 billion, and we could probably raise the $25 million pretty fast. Rogers got an amazing deal. Here's the book. I'll send you a copy of it. So this is a book I wrote about a few years ago now on the 25th anniversary of the Ottawa Senators. And it's called Don't Back Down, the real story behind the founding of the NHL's Ottawa Senators and why big leagues matter. You do not have to be a sports fan to read this. There's a hell of a lot of information about real estate development, and it's also about an entrepreneur's journey, mine. So I'll put it in the chat box. If you want to download it, you can. It's a pretty good story, and people seem to like it. Oh, and I got an offer to buy the film rights for it as well recently. So we'll see. Maybe I don't know, Aaron, who would play me in this particular film, but I'll have to find some young person. Now I'm going to show you a Bruce fail. I want to see how much time I got left. Oh, look at that! I got 10 minutes. So this is a Bruce fail. This is a downtown building, a downtown Belleville building. It's 3 stories. And, it's an historic building. It really is. It's 175 years of age this year. And my wife and I bought it for almost no money. It was being sold for POS, under POS, power of sale. You know what that stands for as well, right, Aaron? Power of sale and piece of whatever, piece of crap. So we bought it for like $284,500, almost nothing really. 12,500 square feet, $22.76 per square foot. You can't build a doghouse for that. And a few days before we closed, the seller's lawyer, you know, some lender, calls up and says, "Oh, by the way, you have to pay another $60,000 or $70,000 in property tax arrears and utility bills." And I said, "No way, we're going to do that." And I said, "If you don't close, we'll pay the land transfer tax and register our agreement of purchase and sale on title, and we'll just wait. You can't sell it to anybody else. You can't refinance it. It's not our responsibility that you didn't pay the property taxes and you didn't pay the utility bills." And eventually, of course, they closed. They chickened out. But here's what the state of the building was. No power, no water, no heat, no sewer, no stormwater connection, and it was suffering a structural failure. So yeah, I thought I was pretty smart, right? Getting it for cheap. Not so much. This on the top left is what it looked like on the day we bought it. And then you can see we're peeling off all this crap stainless steel here and reestablishing the old you know, the facade, which is actually quite beautiful. It's triple brick and it's fantastic with, you know, 15-foot ceiling heights and all this cool stuff. And on the right-hand side, you can see what it looked like probably in the 1970s, because those are sort of 70s cars, right? So that's what we're doing. You can start to see inside the building now. These are some of the Airbnb units that we have, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But it's really an extraordinary project, but it's ridiculously over budget and very much behind schedule. Here's one of our designers. This is Diane Beaulieu putting up a fake bookcase. You can sort of see the kitchens are being installed here. Look at the fire escape we had to put in. I mean, that's friggin' thing is like endless and humongous and expensive. New windows, we had to fix the structure. We got steel in there. That's you know, the building will last another 175 years, probably a little bit longer than I'll last. And then you can see this is our main contractor, Mark Turner, and his son, you know, showing what we did. So on the ground floor, we have Loyalist College, which runs an accelerator program, an incubator for students. And you can see the boys were busy here rebuilding the front. On the side of the building, I like art, and we put a big mural. This is the Loyalist College mural. It's sort of their motto, I guess. And this is part of placemaking, everybody. So this is part of placemaking, right? So you'll say, this is the We Are Small mural. That's what we call it. And, you know, people will actually say, "Hey, I'll meet you at the We Are Small mural." It's placemaking of sorts. That's kind of nice. This is what it looked like on the day I went down to have a look at it. It was beyond description. You know, I mean, you had the rats running around in there and probably a few ghosts as well. So we're $2 million over budget. It was supposed to cost about $2 million. It's now over $4 million. And we're going to take a year and a half to build it. And we're at 2.5. We're not quite finished. So if you guys haven't experimented with it yet, ChatGPT, this new AI thing, is really actually pretty freaking great. How am I doing for time, Aaron? Oh, I got 6 minutes. Oh, Jason said he toured it too. It was a disaster. Thanks for reminding me, Jason. You were much smarter than I was. You didn't buy it. Damn it. Anyway, so anyway, I asked ChatGPT, this new AI tool, and you can see there, I put the link there, chat.openai.com/chat there. It is fantastic. I asked them, what are the 10 biggest mistakes people make in new constructions? And the ones that you see in italics on this screen are the ones I made. Not hiring a reputable builder or contractor. Number 3, underestimating cost. Not considering the factors such as you know, slope, drainage, and all the rest of it. Our freaking basement was a lake. We had to do all kinds of stormwater work. That's another. And number 7, poor communication with the builder. So out of the 10 things, I guess we probably did at least 4 of them wrong. Okay. So, you know, I'm telling you some failures. And I put this in here, and Aaron, your ears should be burning, but I really mean it. If I had known Aaron, you know, back 3 years ago when we got involved with this project, I think Aaron would have saved us a year and probably $1 million. And we still haven't got our occupancy permit for the 2nd and 3rd floor. We're close, but we're not there. So nobody's going to come and rescue the fair maiden. That would be me. Nobody. I mean, there's no cavalry coming over the horizon, to rescue me. So like everybody else on the call here, we kind of have to rescue ourselves mostly. And so what I did was I did a few things. I learned from Paula McFarlane and Jake Taylor to run an Airbnb hotel. They've got one in Stratford, Ontario. We're going to do that in Belleville, which is right next to wine country, Prince Edward County. So we'll run an Airbnb hotel, although she calls them, I think now, digital concierge hotels, not just Airbnb hotels, because we'll use Airbnb, but we'll also use vacation rental by owner, Expedia, and probably a few other platforms. Brad Carche, who's also on this call, is an expert in that. So he'll certainly clue us in as to what we need to do. But bottom line here, we expected revenues from this building of about $20,000 a month. And by doing some things that you can see on the screen there, and I don't have time to go through it in detail, but I will in the course, we've doubled the revenues to $40,000. So the costs have doubled, but the revenues have doubled too. So I think we're going to escape this more or less intact, but that's partly luck. All right. Oh, and something else I put in here, we actually discovered we had a bigger building than we thought. I just had to put this in here. If you go into this building, we discovered that this had been hidden for over 100 years. There is a usable cellar underneath this building of about 2,000 square feet. So all of that to say is that there was some luck involved and there's some skill involved, but there was also many mistakes made. I won't have time to show you on this call that there are people who are doing Main Street makeovers. That's what we call this, where you go onto a main street, you buy a building that obviously needs help, you fix it up, you animate it, you add new revenue streams, and hopefully you've got something really great that makes money, and both in terms of capital gain and also in terms of monthly cash flow. So I wanted to show you that there are projects of Main Street makeovers that my clients are doing in the States and in Canada that are successful, but I would run out of time, so I'll have to reserve that for the course. Are there any questions before we break? Because we've got a couple of minutes left. Please unmute yourself, because I'm going to spend a moment just grabbing, and Aaron, if you don't mind hosting this for a moment, I'll just grab some of the links that I promised everybody.
Yep. Questions, comments, anything?
I have a question, Aaron.
Yep.
You said you were trying to build at around $200 a square foot. Was that for the tiny homes, or was that for multifamilies, or what was that?
Tiny homes are actually a fair bit more a square foot, just by virtue of what we're putting inside of them. It's the multifamily units.
Okay, it's a pretty good price. That's why I was. Yeah, it's competitive.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the tiny home market is a different model altogether. We're significantly higher on the tiny homes, but it's a different offering. So I will bundle up that presentation and send it out to everyone as well. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So Aaron, you got to tell a couple of jokes to fill the air.
I didn't have one at the beginning. I'm out.
I have actually a pretty good joke. It's actually one of my favorites. A little long, but I'll make it quick.
All right.
Three guys rob a bank with potato bags. Okay, and we'll just say one's a realtor, one's a mortgage guy, one's a builder. And obviously, the builder guy, the banker guy, they're pretty smart. The realtor guy is the sales guy, but he's not the smartest guy. So they rob the bank. They run just outside. Cops are chasing them. They see an alley. They get in the alley. They're stuck. They don't know where to go. So the banker guy's like, let's jump in the bags, hide the money, jump in the bags. Cops come, they see 3 bags. They go to the first bag where the smart guy is, the banker, they kick it. And he's like, meow, meow. They're like, it's just a cat, don't worry about it. They kick the second bag where, the other smart guy is, the construction guy, the builder. And then he's like, woof, woof. They're like, it's just a dog, don't worry about it, it's all good. Then they go to the third guy where the realtor's in, not so smart. They kick it and he goes, potato. So they obviously know potatoes don't talk, and they catch everybody.
Okay.
Anyways, that's my joke.
Hey, thank you so much, Soren. That was awesome.
I'm a realtor, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. That was really good. So a couple of last notes. It's 1:01, so we got another few seconds, I suppose. I really, again, I'm sure I speak for Aaron as well. We really appreciate everybody joining us today, and I think Aaron did an excellent job, and I hope I was okay too. One of the things I've done is I put in the chat box, and you got to copy it if you want any of this. You got to copy that stuff out now, because once I close Zoom, it'll disappear. But if you want a copy of Don't Back Down, the book about the Sens and big leagues, and Sky Dome is in there and stuff like that, it's there. If you want to join us with in the course with your +1, the form is in there. I put a link for ChatGPT. You got to try it out, guys, if you have questions. I mean, Google is a search tool. It's very useful, but ChatGPT is amazing. It's a natural language answer machine. It's really incredible. And the other thing I did just at the end there was I put another copy of a book I recently wrote. These are called Learning Outcome Novels, called Twilight Zone. And Twilight Zone is it's kind of a romance, it's adventure, but it's also a learning outcome novel. And guess what? One of the characters in the story Twilight Zone is actually this building in Belleville. So there's pictures in there and graphs in there and spreadsheets in there. So these learning outcome novels that I write, I do it because I like it. You know, is supposed to entertain you, but also maybe help as well. So if you want that, you can grab it out of the chat box. Aaron, Brad, everybody, thanks so much for coming today. I hope to hear from you guys real soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Bye, Denise. Bye, Stuart.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Maria. Raj, I'm glad you came. Bob, Dennis, Rashid, John.
Thanks,
Sure.
everybody.
Thanks
See
so
you
much.
guys. Bye, Alex.